brave and true, with castles and clothing and food for all belongs to you. Every man a king, for you can be a millionaire. That's fine. But there's something belonging to others. There's enough for all people to share. When it's sunny June and December too, or in the winter time or spring, there'll be peace without end, every neighbor a friend, with every man a king.
Hey guys, Snapperface here, and I'm getting really tired of trying and failing to pronounce the word uncover. And it has ruined several takes. Let's hope this is the one. So today's topic is, what if Super Earth lost the First Galactic War? So to find out the what happens, we have to find out the who beat Super Earth, how do they beat Super Earth, and when. Let's go. I didn't stutter horrendously. So, who beat Super Earth? Was it the bugs? I don't think so. Before the First Galactic War even began, there was an event known as the First Crustacean War. Judging by the map, because I love my maps, it appears that the bugs were losing. About to be pushed out of, I think, the G Taurus sector. Anyway, so I don't believe it was them. Except the Illuminate. The Illuminate, up until the Second Galactic War, they were not a society built for war. Because they didn't really have guns. They had a few lasers and people with staffs. But what beats a stick? Any gun. That's what. So I don't believe the Illuminate could have been the main factor in defeating Super Earth. That leaves, expectedly, the cyborgs. I believe the cyborgs are the main candidate for anyone that could have defeated Super Earth. So now that we have the who, we have to figure out the how. How did the cyborgs beat Super Earth? Answer is they don't. They don't just solo it. It's a combined effort that requires many tweaks. I just believe the cyborgs would be the main driving factor. So, the cyborgs, their lore is they were sent, they're pretty much thrown into the harshest planet Super Earth could find because they were rich with minerals and stuff. Whole corporate stuff. I don't give a fuck about the workers, that kind of stuff. And this caused desperation among the human colonists, who augmented themselves, turning themselves into the cyborgs. That is how they're created. And they were pretty disgruntled. Actually, they were pretty pissed that Super Earth basically abandoned them on planets that can only be described as hell. This resulted in their own little culture and a different society separate from the rest of humanity, and eventually a declaration of independence. That is the cyborgs, that's their lore. And because they were colonists and likely suffered massive resource shortages, I don't believe that their population could have been that big. And their methods for making more themselves seem to be abduct a human and just just make them cyborgs, I guess. They don't really appear to be able to reproduce, because their legs and genitals appear to be purely metal. It's kind of hard to reproduce when your dick is metal. And I believe that there would be a little bit of a split between how do we keep the war effort going? Do we just keep going with what we're doing? No. I believe that if the cyborgs were to win, it would require them to lean heavily into full robots. Now, obviously, as mentioned by the new Arrowhead lore video, Super Earth built the automatons, gave them to the enslaved cyborgs, and the cyborgs sent them away to become the automatons. But let's say the cyborgs are hey, we don't have the numbers to continue our war effort. What if we just lean heavily into mass producible robots? And let's say that yeah, you're right, we should probably do that, or else we're gonna lose. We're gonna run out of steam eventually. And this results in the automatons being cranked out like T-34s about 120 years earlier than in the original Helldivers timeline. Now, a few more tweaks, mainly with the Illuminate. The Illuminate had a caste system, and following the declaration of war from Super Earth and kind of getting slapped around by them, they're probably like, we're a little bit too peaceful. We should probably like, scale up the warrior caste army and actually build war equipment. And the bugs, I don't know. I guess they just soak up Super Earth resources. And so I would say with like Super Earth's defenses being shattered by an infinite tide of automatons, and the Illuminate actually using their extremely advanced technology for war, Super Earth would be crushed on two fronts, probably ending with a joint cyborg and Illuminate invasion of the planet itself, resulting in a Super Earth capitulation. Now, what happens? First up, let's cover with the main winners, the cyborgs. The cyborgs' goal was pretty simple. Their goal was independence. And the result of this war would them getting like, the territory they already had, and probably some more of Super Earth's inner colonies. Maybe up to like Fort Union, I think. It depends if I'm remembering them right, but like potentially all the way up to like the first sector, or like away from Super Earth itself. Or maybe even just taking that sector. The result, just the cyborgs would get their own massive state and probably some more land that isn't an inhospitable hellscape. Next up, the bugs. The bugs, they would probably reclaim all of their territory lost during the First Crustacean War, and then maybe some more before getting stopped by the remnants of humanity. Because from what I've seen, Super Earth didn't appear to like have their full industry dedicated to fighting them. So I feel like maybe like a few like remnant colonies could probably have stopped the bugs in the event that Super Earth does collapse. That was pretty bad voice crack. Next up, the Illuminate. The Illuminate, they would probably demilitarize, probably take some land, and because they were a society of peace, they would probably, along with the cyborgs, establish a liberal democracy, a true democracy from the remains of Super Earth. They would pretty much be Super Earth, but they actually practice what they preach and give their citizens true liberty. And but humanity would probably be pretty vengeful as, they got destroyed, or not really like exterminated, but they got their asses kicked pretty bad. Now, obviously, they would not be strong enough to take on the cyborgs or the Illuminate. So I feel like their like revenge would be aimed towards the bugs. And I must state, this is not an allegory for the rise of the Nazi Party. And the bugs, they weren't powerful, but they were a good enemy. Once again, this is not an allegory for anything. And this would kick off an event probably called the Second Crustacean War for over oil, over all reclaiming colonies, and just expansion. Now, obviously, with the full might of a vengeful humanity turned on the bugs, I don't believe the Terminids could have stood a chance. They would have been pushed back a lot, potentially to their own homeworld. The Illuminate they were the shepherds of the galaxy. They like protecting life. So I feel like once Super Earth reached Errata Prime, the homeworld, the Illuminate would step in and be like, "Hey, cut that shit out, or it's war." And once again, because Super Earth was not strong enough to take on the Illuminate, they would probably give up at around Errata Prime and probably the few surrounding sectors. And after that, probably not much would happen. Super Earth would grumble, angry that they lost and couldn't do anything. The Illuminate would keep on living, and the cyborgs would continue to terraform their planets so that they aren't inhospitable hellscapes. And as a result, Super Earth becomes little more than a footnote in history of a country that tried to take over the galaxy and lost. And that is where I believe it would pretty much end. I don't really see a reality where Super Earth could effectively get its revenge, or where the Illuminate and cyborgs would declare war. And the only war I could see happening is just the second crustacean war. That's about it. See ya. Hey guys, editing snack freeze here. I know you don't see me, but I just realized this, like right this very second while I was editing the video. I feel like the peace and like true prosperity not being a horrible surveillance state would eventually like wash away like the feelings of anger and like hatred over losing the war. So yeah,